The silver cup hung suspended in the air, a glinting artifact of family history caught between gravity and possibility. At my brother Daniel's wedding toast, the heirloom slipped from his perfectly manicured fingers, and time seemed to fracture. My hand, steady from years of capturing volatile moments through a camera lens, intercepted the cup's descent. The metal felt unnaturally heavy, vibrating with an energy that defied its polished surface. Hundreds of eyes pivoted from Daniel's chiseled profile to my unexpected intervention, a collective breath caught between celebration and something more complex. This wasn't just any cup. Passed through generations of the Hardwick family, it represented more than mere silverware. It was a symbol of legacy, of unspoken expectations, of the delicate hierarchies that defined our family's intricate social landscape. Daniel had always been perfect. Harvard MBA, Goldman Sachs rising star. Now marrying Emily Richardson, daughter of a federal judge, embodiment of East Coast sophistication. And me? The wandering photojournalist, perpetual outsider, more comfortable documenting conflicts in distant countries than navigating family dynamics. Our mother's gaze locked onto me. Not surprised, not concerned. Something else. Something calculating. Interesting catch, Daniel said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. The reception hall, draped in elegant white and soft champagne tones, suddenly felt charged with an unspoken tension. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic reflections, fragmenting the pristine scene into something more complex. Emily adjusted her pearl earring, a nervous gesture that didn't match her carefully composed exterior. Something was happening, something beyond a simple wedding toast. The cup in my hand felt warm now, alive, as if it carried a narrative more intricate than the celebratory moment suggested. My grandmother's cryptic words echoed in my memory. Legacies choose their bearers, not the other way around. What legacy? What choice? The string quartet continued its elegant melody, waiters circulated with champagne, and the wedding proceeded with practiced perfection. But beneath the surface, something fundamental had shifted, and I knew with a photojournalist's instinctive certainty that this moment was just the beginning of a story far more complicated than a wedding celebration. What ancient family secret had just been set in motion? And why did I feel like catching this simple silver cup was about to unravel everything I thought I knew? Daniel, now back to his effortlessly charming self, continued the toast, his words a carefully constructed narrative of brotherly love and shared memories. Every anecdote felt rehearsed, every sentiment polished to a perfect sheen. I knew the story he was telling wasn't entirely true. Emily, poised and elegant, squeezed his hand. She seemed genuinely happy, but something flickered behind her eyes, a cautious intelligence, a subtle awareness of the undercurrents swirling beneath the surface. I wondered if she knew the full extent of the family history she was marrying into. Our mother, Eleanor Hardwick, was the undisputed matriarch of the family. She was a woman of immense power and influence, cultivated over decades of strategic social maneuvering. Her approval was currency, and her disappointment could be devastating. She had always favored Daniel, molding him into the embodiment of her ambitions. My own path, driven by a need to document the world's harsh realities, had always been a source of disappointment. Such a waste of his potential, I'd overheard her say to a family friend once. The silver cup sat discreetly on the table next to my plate, radiating a faint warmth. I glanced at it, a sense of unease creeping in. It was intricately engraved with symbols I had never noticed before. Intertwined serpents, celestial patterns, and a crest I couldn't quite decipher. I remembered my grandmother, Nana Vivian, the keeper of family secrets, and the only one who ever seemed to truly understand me. She had died 5 years ago, leaving behind a void in my life and unanswered questions about my family's past. Nana Vivian had always hinted at a hidden legacy, a lineage tied to something ancient and powerful. "The cup chooses its own," she would whisper, her eyes filled with secrets she couldn't, or wouldn't, share. My own life felt like a sharp contrast to Daniel's carefully curated world. Years spent in war zones, documenting the human cost of conflict, had hardened me, stripping away any illusions of perfection. I had seen the worst of humanity, and it had left an indelible mark. Coming back to this world of privilege and polished surfaces felt jarring, like stepping into a meticulously crafted stage set. As the evening progressed, I found myself increasingly drawn to the cup, its silent presence a constant reminder of the secrets swirling just beneath the surface. What if Nana Vivian's whispers weren't just the ramblings of an old woman? What if the silver cup held the key to unlocking a hidden history that could shatter everything the Hardwicks had built? The wedding reception moved into its later stages, the carefully choreographed dance of social interactions continuing around me. I watched as Daniel and Emily took to the dance floor, their movements synchronized, a perfect representation of their meticulously planned life. My phone vibrated. A message from my contact at the International Press Bureau, a lead on a potential story in a conflict zone. Muscle memory made me want to respond immediately, to escape back into the world I understood. But something about the silver cup kept pulling my attention back. During a quiet moment, I managed to catch Emily alone near the bar. "Interesting family heirloom," I commented, nodding towards the cup. Her smile became momentarily brittle. "Daniel's family has some complex traditions." Before I could press further, my brother materialized beside her, his hand possessively touching her lower back. "Everything okay?" The question felt more like a warning than genuine concern. Later that evening, I cornered my mother in the elegant library of the reception venue. Eleanor Hardwick stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, her silhouette sharp against the moonlit garden. "That cup," I began. "Nana Vivian always said it was more than just a family keepsake." Her response was measured. "Some stories are better left in the past." But I caught it, a micro-expression of concern that flickered across her face. Whatever secret the cup held, my mother knew something. As the night progressed, I noticed subtle interactions. The way certain family friends looked at me. Hushed conversations that stopped when I approached. An elderly gentleman, someone I didn't recognize, who watched me with an intensity that felt almost ritualistic. My professional instincts, honed by years of investigative journalism, were screaming that something was fundamentally wrong. This wasn't just about a wedding or a family tradition. This was about something deeper, more intricate. I found myself examining the cup more closely. The engravings seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly at them. Serpents that seemed to move, celestial patterns that didn't quite make sense. My training told me to be skeptical, but something deeper, something visceral told me to pay attention. Daniel's best man, Marcus, a childhood friend I barely knew, approached me with a cryptic message. "Some inheritances choose their own path," he whispered, pressing a small sealed envelope into my hand before quickly disappearing into the crowd. The envelope felt heavy with unspoken significance. My brother's gaze caught mine from across the room. For a split second, I saw something I had never seen before. Not the calculated composure he always displayed, but genuine, primal fear. Something was happening. Something that extended far beyond this wedding, far beyond our family's carefully constructed facade. The silver cup seemed to pulse with a life of its own, sitting innocently on the table, holding secrets that were about to unravel everything I thought I knew about my family, my identity, and my place in the world. Would uncovering these secrets destroy everything, or finally reveal the truth I had been searching for my entire life? Vu expander, a sacao de senvolvimento, du conflito, addicionando mais, detalhes e tensão a narrativa. The wedding reception moved into its later stages, but the weight of the silver cup in my hands kept me from fully joining the celebration. I watched as Daniel and Emily performed their first danza, perfectly choreographed waltz that seemed more like a performance than a moment of genuine intimacy. My phone vibrated for the third time that evening. Sarah, my contact at Reuters, was persistent. "Major development in Eastern Europe. Need your expertise. Urgent." The familiar pull of investigative journalism tugged at me, but something stronger kept me rooted in place. The cup's engravings seemed to shift under the chandelier light, creating patterns that demanded attention. "You always were too observant for your own good," a voice said behind me. I turned to find James Montgomery, my grandfather's oldest friend, and someone I hadn't seen in 15 years. His appearance was unexpected. He wasn't on the guest list. "The engravings," I started, but he cut me off with a subtle shake of his head. "Not here," he whispered, his eyes scanning the room with practiced precision. Some conversations require proper timing. Before I could press further, Emily appeared at my elbow, her wedding dress rustling softly. "Your brother needs you in the library," she said, but her eyes told a different story. Fear? Warning? I couldn't quite read her expression. The library was dark except for a single desk lamp. Daniel stood by the window, his silhouette sharp against the garden lights. "You weren't supposed to catch it," he said without turning around. "The cup. It wasn't meant for you. It slipped," I replied. "Nothing in our family just slips," he snapped, finally facing me. His perfect composure had cracked, revealing something raw underneath. Every gesture, every tradition, every moment is choreographed. Has been for generations. The cup grew warmer in my hands. The serpentine engravings seemed to pulse with a life of their own. "What aren't you telling me, Daniel?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "What aren't I telling you?" God, where would I even start? He ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, disrupting hours of careful grooming. "Do you know why you really became a photojournalist? Why you were always drawn to conflict zones?" "Because I wanted to make a difference. Because you were being prepared," he interrupted. "Every assignment, every dangerous situation, every moment you thought you were running away from our family, you were being guided, trained." The library door opened. Our mother entered, followed by James Montgomery and 3 other elderly guests I didn't recognize. They moved with purpose, forming a loose circle around me. "The cup is chosen," James announced, his voice carrying unexpected authority. "The patterns are clear." "He's not ready," Daniel protested. "He doesn't understand the responsibilities, the sacrifices. Neither were you," our mother cut in sharply. "That's why the cup rejected you tonight." The revelation hung in the air. Daniel's perfect life, his carefully constructed image, had it all been preparation for something he ultimately couldn't achieve? My phone buzzed again. Sarah's message was more urgent. Strange diplomatic movements. Multiple countries involved. Something big is happening. The cup's warmth intensified. The engravings now seemed to form a map not of physical locations, but of connections, influences, power flows. "Your grandmother knew," James said softly. "She saw it in you when you were young. The ability to see patterns, to understand conflicts not just as political events, but as human stories waiting to be redirected." The weight of unspoken expectations pressed down on me. Years of wandering, of documenting conflicts, suddenly felt less like escape and more like preparation. "What exactly does this cup do?" I asked, finally voicing the question that had been building all evening. The room grew still. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky, a storm approaching, both literal and metaphorical. "It doesn't do anything," my mother said. "It chooses. It connects. It shows the way to those who can see." "See what?" "The truth behind conflicts. The pressure points where small interventions can prevent wars. The places where the right story, told at the right time, can change the course of history." The cup pulsed once more, and suddenly the patterns made sense. Not just decorative engravings, but a complex network of relationships, power structures, and potential flashpoints. What seemed like a simple wedding tradition was unraveling into something far more complex. Something that would challenge everything I thought I knew about my family, my career, and my place in the world. The library's atmosphere grew heavier as James Montgomery pulled an ancient leather folio from his briefcase. The document's edges were worn, its pages yellowed with age. "Your grandmother documented everything," he said, carefully opening the folio. "Every intervention, every prevented conflict, every subtle manipulation of world events that kept the balance." The pages revealed hand-drawn maps overlaid with intricate notations. Dates, locations, and cryptic symbols that seemed to correspond with the cup's engravings. I recognized some of the locations, places where I'd photographed conflicts, documented human struggles. "Kosovo, 1999, my mother said, pointing to one entry. "You thought you were there as a photojournalist. In reality, your presence, your specific way of documenting the crisis helped prevent a larger catastrophe. The photos I took, were distributed to exactly the right people at exactly the right time," James finished. "Your grandmother made sure of that." Daniel moved restlessly near the window. "You never questioned it? The way your photos always seem to find their way to specific diplomatic channels? The way your random assignments always placed you at crucial historical moments?" The revelation hit me hard. My entire career, every decision I thought I'd made independently, had been subtly guided. The cup grew warmer in my hands, almost humming with energy. A new figure entered the library. Dr. Alina Rossi, a renowned conflict resolution specialist I'd met in various war zones. Her presence here, at my brother's wedding, suddenly took on new meaning. "The network is vast," Elena explained, her academic tone belying the intensity of her gaze. "Journalists, diplomats, aid workers, all connected through generations of careful cultivation. But at the center, there must always be a guardian. Someone who can see the patterns, understand the connections. My phone buzzed again. Sarah's message was now urgent. Multiple diplomatic channels going dark. Military movements in 3 regions. Something unprecedented is building. The cup's engraving shifted again, forming new patterns that seemed to correspond with Sarah's warning. The serpentine designs now looked like flowing lines of force, connecting distant points of tension. "This is your first test," James said quietly. "The cup doesn't just choose, it initiates." Elena stepped forward, producing a tablet displaying real-time satellite imagery. 3 separate conflicts are converging. Traditional diplomatic channels are failing. We need someone who can see the larger pattern. The weight of the moment pressed down. Years of documenting human conflict had trained me to see connections, to understand the subtle interplay of human motivations and historical forces. "Show him," my mother commanded. James activated a hidden panel in the library wall, revealing a sophisticated communication center behind the ancient books. Multiple screens displayed news feeds, diplomatic communications, and data streams I couldn't quite comprehend. "Your grandmother's last entry," he said, pointing to the final page of the folio. She predicted this moment. A convergence of conflicts that could reshape the global order. Daniel's perfect wedding, I realized, wasn't just a celebration, it was a cover. A gathering of key players in this hidden network, brought together by the possibility of this very moment. "The cup doesn't just show patterns," Elena explained. "It amplifies the bearer's natural abilities. Your gift for seeing connections, for understanding human conflict. The cup will enhance that." The engravings pulsed again, stronger now. In their patterns, I began to see more than just symbols. I saw connections between seemingly unrelated events. Political movements, economic pressures, human ambitions, all flowing together like tributaries into a larger river of potential conflict. "You see it now, don't you?" my mother asked softly. I did. The patterns were clear, 3 separate conflicts, each manageable alone, but together they formed a perfect storm of global instability. "What am I supposed to do?" "What you've always done," James replied. "Tell the story. But this time, you'll know exactly who needs to see it, and when." The cup had chosen its moment well. My years of experience, my network of contacts, my understanding of human conflict all had prepared me for this role. "Time is critical," Elena warned, checking her tablet. "The patterns are aligning faster than we anticipated." The storm outside intensified, lightning illuminating the library in stark flashes. In those moments I caught glimpses of other figures in the shadows, more members of this hidden network, watching, waiting. What started as a simple wedding toast had evolved into something far more complex. A test, an initiation, a moment of transformation that would challenge everything I thought I knew about my role in the world. The cup pulsed once more, and I made my decision. "Show me everything," I demanded, placing the cup deliberately at the center of the hidden command center's main console. The moment the silver touched the surface, the screens flickered and realigned, displaying information with newfound clarity. Elena's fingers flew across multiple keyboards, bringing up classified documents and satellite feeds. 3 flashpoints, she explained, her academic demeanor now replaced with military precision. First, a submarine incident in the South China Sea. Second, unexpected troop movements along a disputed Eastern European border. Third, a cryptic diplomatic breakdown in the Middle East, seemingly unrelated. James added, but the cup shows otherwise. The engravings on the silver surface began to mirror the data streams, creating an intricate web of connections that only I seemed able to see clearly. Years of photojournalism had taught me to spot patterns, to see stories within stories, but this was different. This was seeing the machinery behind world events. "Your grandmother called it the pattern," my mother said, her social mask completely dropped. The ability to see how small events cascade into larger consequences. The cup enhances that natural ability. Daniel moved closer, his wedding attire now incongruous with the gravity of the situation. "I spent years training for this," he admitted. "Learning the protocols, studying the patterns, but I could never see them, not really. Not like you're seeing them now." The cup pulsed again, and suddenly I understood something crucial. "The submarine incident," I said, pointing to the South China Sea data. "It's a false flag. Look at the communication patterns." Elena quickly cross-referenced the data. "He's right. The submarine movements don't match standard naval protocols. And here, I continued, the cup's energy flowing through me like an electric current. The troop movements in Eastern Europe, they're not aggressive, they're defensive. Someone wants us to think they're preparing for invasion, but look at the supply lines. James smiled slightly. You're starting to understand. My phone buzzed again. Sarah's message was now frantic. Major news networks preparing to break all 3 stories. Global markets already responding to rumors. Need confirmation ASAP. The cup grew warmer, its engraving shifting to reveal new patterns. I saw not just current events, but potential futures, cascading consequences that could lead to global conflict. We need to reshape the narrative, I said, the words coming from somewhere deeper than conscious thought. Not by hiding the truth, but by revealing a different truth. This is why the cup chose you, Alina said softly. You understand that information is not just about facts, it's about perspective, timing, context. I turned to Daniel. Your wedding isn't just a cover, is it? Some of these guests, ball quotes, he nodded. Key information distributors, media owners, policy influencers, all waiting to see if the cup would choose, if the network would have a new guardian. The hidden command center hummed with energy as more data poured in. I saw the patterns with increasing clarity, not just the surface conflicts, but the deeper currents of human motivation and fear that drove them. The Middle East diplomatic breakdown, I said, seeing it clearly now. It's connected to both other events. Not directly, but through financial markets. Someone's orchestrating a global crisis. To what end? My mother pressed, testing me. The cup's engraving shifted again, and I saw it. Power redistribution. Create enough instability, and traditional power structures break down. In the chaos, new powers rise. But you can prevent it, James said. The cup shows you how. I studied the patterns, the connections, the potential points of intervention. Years of documenting human conflict had taught me that every story has multiple truths. The trick was knowing which truth needed to be told, to whom, and when. I need access to my full network, I said. Every contact, every source, every channel I've built over the years. Alina handed me a secure phone. Already done. The network is waiting. The storm outside reached its peak, thunder rattling the library windows. In that moment, I understood what my grandmother had been preparing me for all along. Not just to document conflicts, but to understand them deeply enough to prevent them. One more thing, James said, producing a small key. Your grandmother left this for the moment the cup chose. He opened a hidden drawer in the command center, revealing a worn leather journal. Her personal records of how the patterns work. The cup pulsed one final time and the path forward became clear. 3 conflicts, 3 narratives, 3 opportunities to reshape reality not through force, but through understanding. I reached for my grandmother's journal, feeling the weight of generations of guardians before me. The world was about to change, and I now had the tools to ensure it changed for the better. Where do we begin? Daniel asked, finally accepting his role as support rather than leader. I looked at the patterns one more time, seeing all the connections, all the possibilities, all the potential futures flowing from this moment. We begin, I said, by telling the right story. The sealed envelope from Marcus burned in my pocket. I waited until the reception's energy dispersed, finding a quiet corner near the expansive garden where moonlight filtered through ancient oak trees. Inside the envelope, I discovered a series of fragmented photographs and a handwritten note. The images were professionally taken surveillance shots of my family dating back decades. Some showed my grandparents in locations that seemed incongruous with their supposed life stories. A photograph of my grandmother standing beside a nondescript building in Eastern Europe. Another of my grandfather meeting a group of men in military uniforms from a country I couldn't immediately identify. The note was cryptic. Not everything is as it appears. The cup is more than a vessel, it's a key. My journalistic training kicked in. These weren't random snapshots, but carefully curated evidence of something larger. Meanwhile, Emily seemed increasingly distant from Daniel. During a moment when he was distracted by wedding guests, I caught her making a hushed phone call, her tone urgent and controlled. Something was fracturing in their seemingly perfect relationship. My mother, Eleanor, moved through the reception with calculated grace. But I noticed her watching me, not Daniel, with an intensity that suggested she was waiting for something specific to happen. The silver cup remained my obsession. Its intricate engravings seemed to tell a story beyond mere family decoration. Serpent symbols intertwined with what looked like astronomical charts, suggesting something more than traditional metalwork. A distant cousin, Anton, whom I barely knew, approached me. "Your grandmother always said you would be the one," he muttered, before quickly disappearing into the crowd. The wedding celebration continued, but beneath the surface, complex narratives were unfolding. Family connections, hidden histories, unspoken tensions, all converging around this mysterious silver cup and my unexpected role. My years of documenting global conflicts had taught me to recognize when something fundamental was about to change. And right now, every instinct told me that this wedding was merely a backdrop for a much larger, more complex story. The photographs, the whispered conversations, the strange looks, they were all pieces of a puzzle I was just beginning to understand. What connection did my family have to these shadowy networks? What secrets had been carefully hidden for generations, waiting for this moment? As the reception wound down, Daniel requested a private family meeting in the mansion's library. The room, lined with leather-bound books and ancestral portraits, felt more like a war room than a family gathering space. My mother sat rigidly. Daniel positioned himself strategically near the fireplace, and I remained standing, sensing something significant was about to unfold. "The cup chooses," Daniel said suddenly, his professional demeanor cracking. "It's not about inheritance. It's about responsibility." Emily stood silently by the window, her wedding dress now seeming more like a costume than a celebration of love. She knew something critical. Anton's earlier cryptic comment replayed in my mind. "Your grandmother always said you would be the one." Daniel produced a sealed document from inside his jacket. "This changes everything," he said, sliding it across the antique mahogany table. The document appeared to be a complex genealogical record, but with markings I didn't understand. Diplomatic seals, cryptic annotations in languages that seemed part official document, part coded communication. "Our family," my mother interrupted, "has never been just a family. We've been custodians." "Custodians of what?" The silver cup on the table seemed to vibrate almost imperceptibly. Its engravings now looked less like decorative metalwork and more like a complex map, or perhaps a key to something far more significant. Emily walked closer to the table, her movements precise. "He needs to know," she said to Daniel and Eleanor. "Not a request, a statement." My professional training as a photojournalist had taught me to recognize moments of profound transition. This was one of those moments. Daniel's composure fractured. For the first time, I saw genuine emotion, fear, anticipation, a complex mix of familial duty and personal conflict. "The cup," he said, "is not just an heirloom. It's a responsibility, a lineage that chooses its bearer, not the other way around." My mother's eyes locked with mine. No longer the calculating socialite, but someone who carried deep, complex knowledge. The sealed document seemed to pulse with potential energy. Genealogical records mixed with what appeared to be diplomatic communications, fragments of a story far larger than our family. "Some legacies," my mother said quietly, "cannot be refused. They choose." Outside, a storm began to build. Thunder rumbled in the distance, as if nature itself was responding to this moment of revelation. The silver cup sat in the center of the table, silent, waiting. What ancient responsibility was about to be thrust upon me? What secrets had my family been protecting? And why was I suddenly at the center of something that felt far larger than a simple family tradition? The silence in the library was deafening. My mind raced, processing the weight of what had just been revealed or partially revealed. Emily was the first to move. She opened a hidden compartment in an antique desk, retrieving a small leather-bound journal. "This belonged to your grandmother," she said, sliding it towards me. She knew this day would come. Daniel's professional veneer had completely shattered. "It's not a choice," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. "The cup chooses." My mother's composure remained intact, but I could see the tension in her jaw, the subtle tremor in her perfectly manicured hand. I opened the journal. The pages were filled with intricate notes, coded messages, and sketches that seemed to blend geographical maps with something more astronomical: charts, genealogical diagrams, fragments of languages I couldn't immediately recognize. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus, the best man. "Protect the cup. They're already moving." "Who's moving?" I asked, looking up. The room went silent. Eleanor, my mother, stepped forward. "Some legacies are larger than family, larger than individual desires or personal plans." Daniel interjected, "You've been preparing for international documentary work your entire life. But this is different." Emily's hand touched the silver cup, and for a moment, the engraving seemed to shimmer, to move. "The cup is a key," she said softly. "But a key to what?" My years of journalistic training had prepared me for uncovering hidden stories, for navigating complex narratives. But this felt different. This was personal. This was about my family's deepest, most guarded secret. The leather-bound journal seemed to pulse with unspoken stories. Decades of carefully preserved information waiting for this moment. Outside, the storm intensified. Lightning illuminated the library, casting dramatic shadows across the room. Daniel looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Part warning, part resignation. "Some responsibilities cannot be avoided," he said. "Some choices are made long before we're aware we're choosing." The silver cup sat silently, waiting. What ancient mechanism had just been set in motion? And more importantly, was I ready to uncover a truth that could completely destroy everything I thought I knew about my family? The next morning, I found myself in my childhood study, surrounded by the leather-bound journal, scattered photographs, and the silver cup. Sunlight filtered through heavy curtains, revealing dust motes that seemed to dance with potential energy. I began meticulously documenting everything, my photojournalist's instinct kicking in. Each page of the journal revealed fragments of a complex narrative. My grandmother's handwriting was precise, almost coded. Notes about diplomatic missions, cryptic references to guardians and preservation. A series of photographs caught my attention. My grandmother, much younger, standing in locations across Eastern Europe and parts of Central Asia. Not as a tourist, but with a purpose. Her posture suggested someone on a mission, not a casual traveler. Marcus arrived unexpectedly, bringing additional documents. "Your family isn't what you think," he said. "They've been protecting something far more significant than a simple family legacy." The documents revealed a complex network. Diplomatic communications, intelligence fragments, references to geopolitical movements that predated modern international relations. My family wasn't just wealthy, they were custodians of something much larger. I called my contacts in international journalism, discreetly probing for information. Each conversation revealed more questions than answers. Subtle hints, carefully constructed walls of silence. Daniel visited, bringing additional context. "Our role has always been about balance," he explained. "Preventing conflicts before they begin. Protecting information that could destabilize entire regions." The silver cup became my focal point. Its engravings now seemed like a complex map knot of geography, but of something more abstract. Connections. Potential energy. Emily provided crucial pieces. She wasn't just Daniel's wife, she was part of this intricate network. Her background in international law suddenly made sense. "Some responsibilities are inherited," she said. "Some are chosen." My previous life as a conflict photographer suddenly felt like preparation. The skills I'd developed observing, documenting, understanding complex human dynamics were precisely what this legacy required. The journal revealed a generational mission. My grandmother's notes spoke of preventing conflicts, protecting delicate diplomatic balance. Not through military means, but through information, strategic intervention, careful manipulation of potential crisis points. I realized my wandering photojournalist career wasn't an accident. It was preparation. Each conflict zone, each story I documented, had been unconscious training for this moment. The cup seemed to pulse with an almost living energy, a connection to something larger than individual ambition, a responsibility that transcended personal desires. My mother visited, her usual calculated demeanor replaced by something more vulnerable. "Some stories are too important to be told," she said. "Some truths must be protected." I understood now. My family wasn't just wealthy or connected. They were guardians of a complex, intricate global balance. The silver cup sat before me, no longer just an object, but a symbol of a mission larger than myself. Was I ready to step into a role that would completely transform everything I thought I knew about my family, my purpose, my entire existence? The cup seemed to whisper, the real journey was just beginning. The next 3 days became an intense period of preparation. Marcus introduced me to a network of contacts professionals from various fields who seemed to operate in a shadowy intersection of diplomacy, intelligence, and global strategy. Each meeting revealed another layer of my family's true purpose. They weren't simply wealthy observers. They were strategic interventionists who had prevented countless potential global conflicts through carefully orchestrated information management. My grandmother's journal became my primary source of understanding. Coded entries detailed subtle diplomatic interventions, preventing economic collapses, redirecting potential military confrontations, protecting vulnerable populations through strategic information distribution. The silver cup transformed in my perception. No longer just a family heirloom, it was a symbolic key to a complex network of global influence. Daniel provided specialized training, communication protocols, secure communication methods, understanding the delicate balance of international relations. My photojournalist background gave me unique skills, the ability to observe, document, and understand complex human dynamics. Emily introduced me to a series of encrypted communication systems. "Your network is now global," she explained. "But with that comes extraordinary responsibility." My mother's final preparation was most revealing. She presented me with a series of documents detailing our family's true history, generations of quiet diplomats, information brokers who operated beyond traditional governmental structures. Each contact brought another piece of the puzzle: a former UN diplomat, an intelligence analyst, a human rights lawyer, all connected through an intricate web that my family had carefully maintained for generations. The cup continued to be my focal point. Its engravings now seemed alive. A complex map of global connections, potential intervention points, strategic pathways. My previous life as a wandering photojournalist suddenly made perfect sense. Each conflict zone, each story I documented, had been unconscious preparation for this moment. "You're not just inheriting a legacy," Marcus told me. "You're becoming a guardian of global balance." The weight of the responsibility was immense, but so was the potential to make a genuine difference. The storm that had begun at the wedding seemed to have followed me, a metaphorical representation of the transformative energy surrounding this moment. Everything I thought I knew about my family, about myself, was about to change forever. What final test awaited me? What ultimate challenge would determine whether I was truly capable of accepting this extraordinary legacy? The call came at 3:17 a.m. Encrypted communication routed through multiple international servers. A crisis was unfolding in a disputed region between two nuclear-powered nations. Potential conflict. Millions of lives hanging in a delicate balance. The silver cup sat beside me, its engravings now seeming to pulse with a living energy. A map, a key, a conduit of information more powerful than any traditional diplomatic channel. I decoded the message using protocols my grandmother had meticulously documented. Satellite imagery, intelligence reports, potential intervention points. My photojournalist background merged seamlessly with this new role, understanding human dynamics, seeing beyond the official narratives. Emily arrived within an hour, bringing additional encrypted communications. "This is your first real test," she said. "No emotion, pure professional assessment." The conflict zone was complex. Ethnic tensions, economic pressures, historical grievances ready to explode into open warfare. I began reconstructing the narrative, not through military intervention, but through strategic information distribution, identifying key influencers, understanding the human motivations behind the potential conflict. Daniel monitored from a secure communication center. "You're not just preventing a war," he instructed. "You're redirecting human potential." The silver cup became my primary tool. Its complex engravings now revealed themselves as a sophisticated communication network. Connections, potential pathways, strategic interventions. My grandmother's training emerged not as a distant memory, but as an instinctive protocol. Each decision calculated, each communication precisely designed to reduce tension. I reached out to specific individuals: a local journalist, a regional economic advisor, a community leader with significant influence. Not with direct instructions, but with carefully constructed information that would naturally redirect potential conflict. Hours passed. The global tension remained at a critical point. My mother watched remotely, her expression a mixture of assessment and potential pride. The silver cup seemed to vibrate with an almost sentient energy, a living connection to a network far more complex than traditional diplomatic channels. One strategic communication, one precisely constructed narrative intervention, and then silence. The tension began to dissipate, not through force, not through traditional diplomatic pressure, but through a carefully constructed redirection of human potential. Daniel's voice came through the secure channel. "You did it." The cup's engraving shifted, almost like a smile, a silent acknowledgement of a mission accomplished. I realized this was more than a family legacy. This was a global responsibility, a network of subtle, strategic interventions that prevented conflicts before they could begin. My entire life, my photojournalist career, my understanding of human complexity had been preparation for this moment. The silver cup sat silently, a witness, a tool, a key to a network more powerful than any single government or military force. What final transformation awaited me? What deeper understanding of my family's true purpose was yet to be revealed? The aftermath was surprisingly quiet. No fanfare, no public recognition. Just a subtle shift in global dynamics that most would never comprehend. My life had fundamentally changed. The wandering photojournalist was now a guardian of a complex, invisible network that maintained global balance. The silver cup, my new constant companion, sat on my desk, a reminder of the extraordinary responsibility I had inherited. Daniel visited one last time. "Our family doesn't seek credit," he said. "We seek balance." Emily provided me with a final set of encrypted documents, generations of carefully preserved interventions, each one a testament to the delicate work of preventing conflicts before they could ignite. My mother's final lesson came through a handwritten note. True power lies not in control, but in understanding. The network I now belonged to was neither government nor traditional intelligence agency. It was something more fluid, more nuanced. A collective of individuals who understood that global stability required more than military might or diplomatic pressure. My photojournalists, I saw the world differently now. Each conflict, each potential crisis became a complex narrative waiting to be understood, redirected, resolved. The silver cup remained my most profound connection to this new world. No longer just a family heirloom, but a living testament to a legacy of quiet intervention. I looked at the photographs from my previous life, war zones, conflict regions, moments of human struggle. Now I understood them differently. Not just as stories to be told, but as complex human narratives waiting to be understood and transformed. My journey was just beginning. The cup seemed to whisper, some legacies choose their bearers, not the other way around. What mysteries still waited to be uncovered? 6 months later, the silver cup sits on my desk. The world continues its complex dance of potential conflicts and delicate balances. My photographs now tell a different story, not just of human struggle, but of potential transformation. The network watches, waits, intervenes when necessary. I am no longer just an observer. I am a guardian. Every story has power. Every perspective matters. We are all potential guardians of global understanding. Look beyond the headlines. Question the narratives. Seek connections where others see only divisions. Your unique skills, your experiences, your perspective, they are more powerful than you imagine. The world doesn't need heroes. The world needs understanding. Are you ready to see differently?